Kunal Bell, the co-founder and promoter at a lot of ecosystem at the startups, is joining us on the show to talk to us about his, takeaway from the meetings he's had with the Doyen, Mr. Ratan Tata. Kunal, hi, good to be speaking with you. To begin with, I want you to don the hat of the, member of the startup ecosystem of the country, and the first ones at that, the first generation, if I can call you with respect to that. Mr. Ratan Tata has done a lot, not only for traditional industries, but the fact that he lent a year whenever anybody needed it, not only his capital, but the guidance and the learnings that he really imparted. Your first thought and tribute to him.
Thank you for having me. It's obviously a really sad day for the nation and all of us who have had the privilege of being touched by Mr. Tata's grace. Um, Mr. Tata, nobody could have ever imagined one day would back founders, right, of young startups. I remember I got a call out of the blue from, someone who knew both of us and said that there is a ultra high net worth individual who'd like to meet you. He's read about you, and he's looking to make some investments. And there was no way I could have, in my wildest dreams, imagined that it would be Mr. Tata. And that name was really revealed to me literally a day before the meeting. And I met him in 2014, in our early days of building our business. And within, I remember vividly, I was sitting in his office. He was busy with another meeting, and I waited maybe 5-7 minutes. And when he came in, he the first thing he did was he was like, I'm really, really sorry. I've kept you waiting. I mean, this is Mr. Tata, and I'm some, 30-year-old entrepreneur. The amount of respect he gave everyone around him, whether it's the watchman or whether it is his assistants, whether it is a founder, whether it is another of his peers or a big businessman, he gave everyone a lot of respect, and I think set such a great example. And I remember that, unlike many people who have like big offices, big tables, and they sit behind these big tables, and you have to sit on a smaller chair across from the table from them. With him, it was completely different. I was sitting on a couch, and he pulled a visitor chair and just sat next to me, and we talked for 30 minutes. And that was just his greatness, where he would completely disarm you and make you feel really special and make you feel that you are the only person that mattered to him in that moment.
So, sir, he was an investor in your company, and now you're an investor in many other companies and startups. One of your invested companies also recently got listed on the stock exchanges. So, what are his teachings that you're now implementing while investing in these new companies that you have invested?
See, it's fundamentally about the people. Mr. Tata invested in the people that he met. He did ask about the businesses. He did ask about. I remember when he met me, he asked me. I was, I took printouts of our presentation, walked through it for 20 minutes, and then he just asked me one question that I'm really impressed about how you run your supply chain. Can you tell me about that? And that was the only business-oriented question he asked. Outside of that, it was all about me, the person I am, my motivations, how I got here, where do I want to go, and I think it just tells you that in the end, businesses will go through their ups and downs, and businesses sometimes don't work out also, and sometimes become very big. But in the end, he backs people, and that's what I have also learned in my journey of supporting hundreds and hundreds of founders in their journeys. Is that in the end, it's all about the people.
About the people, and that's what he cared about. Not only the people who are directly impacted with his touch, but of course he did a lot for mankind as well in terms of his philanthropic efforts. But talk to me about, Kunal, how he was as an investor. When he invested in Snapdeal, did he used to ask you a lot of number related questions in the investor updates? Did he give you a lot of guidance or ask question about the strategy? How was he as an investor?
Mr. Tata has I guess I should say had, unfortunately, but always had the great skill of doing altitude shifts. He could go very deep into something if you wanted him to, or he had the ability to, in the very next moment, switch context and go very high and raise his altitude and look at the broader picture of the company, of the industry. And that is what made him so special in the way he was able to look at business and the situation a business was in. And there was great learning in that, because sometimes as operators, as founders, we tend to get caught up in the minutiae and are unable to zoom out. He had this exceptional skill of zooming in and zooming out, literally from one moment to the next.
Okay. Also, if you could share any fond experience or anecdote that you have that you had with Ratan Tata, which you would like to share.
I mean, there are so many, and some of them I really do want to keep as a private memory. But I remember when the first time I met him, and I told you about the time when the meeting started, when he was running 5-7 minutes late. But interestingly, once the meeting was towards the end of the meeting, I asked him just one question. I said, he asked me actually, do you have any questions? I said, I just have, and this is after he had said, look, I really like what you're doing. And then and there, he committed to making the investment. It's not like my people will talk to your people and they will do a lot of Excel analysis and ask you for data. He decided there itself, sitting on that visitor chair next to me, saying that I would love to support you if you would be kind enough to have me on board. These were his words. Imagine Mr. Tata saying, if you would be kind enough to have me on board. I mean, obviously, I melted in that moment. And as we were leaving, I just asked him one thing. He said, do you have any questions? I said, I have just one request. At some point, would you please come and meet with our team? And, maybe my biggest regret is that we were never able to. He said, absolutely, yes, it's my promise. Unfortunately, we were never able to make it work for a variety of logistical reasons. But I met him during COVID once, and it had been a couple of years since I had met him because of COVID. And I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Tata, I'm Kunal. He paused, and then he looked at me, then he smiled. He said, obviously, I know. And I also still owe you that trip when I'm going to come meet your team. So 8 years after I met him, he still remembered that promise.
I think that encompasses the kind of man he was. Very humble, very full of humility, and at the same time having that eye for detail, as well as the ability, as you said, to zoom in and zoom out and look at the bigger good and the bigger good of mankind. That is what the highlight was. Thanks so much, Kunal, for joining us today and sharing your, these private moments, which are, of course, very, very special with respect to Mr. Ratan Tata. Those are.
There comes a time when your heart calls for you to arise. Plant your feet solid into the ground. Decide your own limits, and then break right through them. Become something more. It's my time to rise.